We know that the Jays are in the market for an outfielder in this offseason, whether it be trade in the free agent market. They're going to be all in on that front. But a report came out that the Jays are interested in trading for Christian Yelich. He's no longer the former MVP. You're not going to be acquiring that kind of player, but he's still pretty good and would definitely fill some holes for the Blue Jays. So we'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, this is usually the point of the offseason where we start to critique everything that's going on, and we're giving Ross Atkins and company a lot of heat for dumpster diving. But I don't think the Jays have to dumpster dive this offseason. There's a lot of great options out there on the trade market, on the free agent market, and Christian Yelich was just one of the more recent names that has been brought up here by notable reporters. John Heyman, I know he's not too popular right now in Canada, but he still has some intel and he still has some sources. And if he's saying that the Jays could be in on Cody Bellinger, on Christian Yelich, and we should take his word for it. And those are two very good options to fill a very big need right now for the Blue Jays. So, Nick, this is exciting. I mean, the Jays are in on a lot of players. Surprise, surprise. But they never end the offseason with nobody. Okay, so let's just get that out of the way right now. They're going to do something. We just don't know what yet, but there's a lot of different options, and they can pivot in any direction they want to right now.
Yeah, and we've been discussing a lot of different trade targets, specifically Christian Yelich a couple times. But we did not know that they were actually interested in him. But before we do into that, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. About 70% of you guys aren't subscribed. And our goal is 12,500 by Christmas. It's maybe a bit of a stretch, but you guys are incredible. So thank you guys for that. And Peter, like you said, let's get right into it. Huge trade potentially incoming now. Like you said, he's not the MVP he once was, but I think it would still be a huge boost to this team. And John Heyman was on live stream yesterday from his dining room giving little tidbits of intel about the Blue Jays, about the rest of the stuff, about, of course, the Ohtani news, which is still prominent. And he said that the Blue Jays are, quote, kicking around on Yelich, and he went more in depth and basically saying that the Jays are looking at a lot of outfielders. So he went in more in depth about Cody Bellinger, but then said that the Christian Yelich is a guy they could be looking for. And there's been multiple reports coming out over the past couple weeks. The Jays are looking specifically in the trade market if they strike out on Cody Bellinger. Now, Peter, whether this is a kind of a backup plan if they don't get Bellinger, maybe they're uncomfortable with Bellinger's price, or maybe they're right in on Bellinger and it's a 1A, 1B plan. What are your thoughts on Christian Yelich? He's a very interesting player in 2022, which was last season. You can look at his stats here. He had some good months, some bad months. He still finished with an 818 OPS. He's a solid fielder. He's a left-handed power bat. What are your thoughts on Yelich? And we can get into what it would take to get him a little bit later, but what are your thoughts on this report? It's not really that surprising, to be honest with you.
He's not as complete as Cody Bellinger is, and that's one thing that really stands out to me. Yes, he steals a lot of bases, very fast, doesn't have the same amount of power. His arm is not great out there in the outfield, and he's not amazing defensively like Cody Bellinger is. So I just want to make sure with John Heyman that this is okay for the game. If the Jays were to trade for one of these guys or sign one of these guys, let's just call the Yankees and the Dodgers first to see if they're okay with us trying to acquire somebody or trying to make the Blue Jays a better organization. That's all I want to know. I'd sleep a little bit better at night if John Heyman was okay with some of these transactions that we're talking about. But when it comes to Yelich, I think he's a good player. I think he would probably be a backup plan, but also, the Jays could view him as a more stopgap type of option for the next 2-3 years, as opposed to Cody Bellinger, who you're going to have to give at least 6-7 years to. So maybe the Jays don't want to commit that much term to Cody Bellinger, and they would pivot to Christian Yelich, who would give you similar-ish production, maybe not on the power side of things, but still be a pretty good upgrade for you. Or they could go to Bellinger, who's going to be here for a long time, spend the rest of his career here most likely, and see what he does from there. I think you know what you're getting more out of Christian Yelich. You know what to expect from him year in, year out. Whereas Cody Bellinger, it's a bit of a wild card, but you could be getting an MVP level player, or you could be getting just an average major leaguer, and I guess that's the risk you're taking with Cody Bellinger, but I like to take that risk. I like to have that potential MVP season in the wings.
Yeah, and it's a super interesting question, especially when you're comparing the two. Like you said, Bellinger's down years have been a lot worse than Yelich's down years. We saw his MVP caliber seasons when he won it in 2018. He's had seasons where he's had over 1,000 OPS. Last season was a solid one. Like you said, he does not have the power right now over the past 4 seasons that he once did and that Cody Bellinger would possess. Now, another thing to keep in mind is a contract. He's still under contract for several more years at about $22 million AAV. So the rest of the contract will be cheaper than Cody Bellinger because Bellinger will get more, obviously, term. He will get more money. He's looking at probably approaching $200 million. And when you're looking at Yelich, I don't know the exact, I think it was 5 years left at $22 million. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. But again, I like him. I like him a lot. He's a very solid player. I agree with you. I think the question now would be, we've heard lots of reports and lots of questions from the front office about, and from other teams as well and other fans, what will Cody Bellinger bring? Will we get the Bellinger of 2021, 2022, or will we get the one from last season where he was an MVP caliber player? And you can kind of ask the same question for Yelich, but for Yelich, like you said, there's a higher floor, I would say, but a lower ceiling, even though his ceiling is still MVP caliber. So extremely interesting question. He had a very solid year last year, but him versus Bellinger, I feel like you're kind of shopping in a similar vein here.
And those always compared when they were both in their prime, battling it out for the MVP award when they were with the Dodgers and Christian Yelich before his injuries. So I don't know. There are 5 more years left on this deal, $22 million. I feel like you could get Cody Bellinger for a similar amount, and I'd rather bank on that higher ceiling because, okay, if you get, let's say, Christian Yelich and he performs like he did last year, does that position the Blue Jays as World Series contenders? I don't know if it moves the needle that much. Whereas if you're getting a Cody Bellinger season like he had last year with 20-something odd home runs, 20-something stolen bases, hitting over 300, OPS nearing 900, I think that moves the needle a lot more for the Jays. So you could get them for similar prices, and I'd rather bank on the guy with the higher ceiling. And I've been on record saying this. I think this is closer to the player that you're going to get with Cody Bellinger. I don't think he's going to struggle mightily like he did in the past couple of years there with the Dodgers. I think he's healthy now. I think this is the player we can expect going forward. I wouldn't expect him to have another down season like he did. It's possible. I wouldn't rule it out, but I truly believe that this is the player that you're going to get, the one that we saw last year with the Cubs.
Yeah, now we're looking at a trade here. This is not a proposed trade. This is just to show you the values of the players. And Christian Yelich is minus 40, and that is because of what you just mentioned, his 5-year, however much AAV. Now, when you're looking at a potential trade, we also have to mention the fact that you'd be getting Bellinger just for money, and if you're trading for Yelich, you would obviously have to give up a player. Now, Peter, I don't know what you would think. I think if you do trade, and this is another interesting thing I saw, maybe you would be able to package Willy Adames with Christian Yelich. And I'm not saying you'd have to give up Ricky Tiedemann. You maybe would if you're getting both of these guys. But the point being is if you could package Willy Adames, that makes this a little bit more interesting. So you're kind of filling 2 holes here with one swing of the bat. What are your thoughts on this? Not necessarily this particular trade, but would you be open to giving maybe Tiedemann away for Yelich and Adames for the next 3 years?
I wouldn't do Tiedemann. I wouldn't do that, but I'd do anyone else in the farm system. I would start with Aurelvis Martinez. Ricky Tiedemann is untouchable unless it's for a big-time player. And when I say big-time, I'm saying like Lewis Robert. I'm talking about that type of player, a guy who's going to be in the MVP conversation. Yelich and Adames, good players, definitely going to make this team better. I'm not trading my blue chip prospect for them. Sorry to break it to you, but I look at Willy Adames, really good player, very underrated defensively as well. He'd probably be the everyday third baseman, and that would solve 2 problems with one trade. So that's definitely something that I'd be open to, just not with Ricky Tiedemann in the conversation.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And let us know in the comments section. Would you trade Tiedemann if you're getting a couple of players back like this? Because you might see Tiedemann in the thumbnail. But Peter, let's quickly touch on this now before we wrap it up, which is Schneider praises Vladdy. We've been all in the trade conversations. I just wanted to bring this up because it's been a while since we've heard from John Schneider and discussed Vladdy at all. Because realistically, the biggest, we always say this, we said it last season too, and it ultimately came to fruition. The biggest offseason addition they can make, aside from Ohtani, would be Vladdy playing like Vladdy. And this is what John Schneider had to say. I've said this for a while. I think there's some unfair expectations, but I think he's as motivated and as driven as I've ever seen him. He understands that he doesn't have to do all of the heavy lifting, and he basically just goes on to say that he's very focused, he's getting in shape, he's ready to go. We saw him hit that crazy home run in the, was it the Dominican League or some sort of event they were hosting there. Peter, I don't know if you want to have a quick thought on this. Vladdy, I'm hoping he turns it around. I'm watching his highlights, and I just wish he'll go back to the way it was in 2021. He's the biggest wild card here. As much as we're talking about free agent additions that we need, which we definitely do, we need some internal growth as well on a bounce back season from Vlad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's, 25 years old. So this is still so early in his career. The expectations that he had on him coming into his career were just astronomical. And I don't know if he was ever going to live up to that. He was expected to be a Hall of Fame player right off the bat and be that guy. But he's still so young and he's still got so much room to grow. I think he's going to be an MVP someday. I think he's got that kind of talent. He's just got to take it a little bit more seriously, trust his approach, trust his hands in the box. And you see him, he's taking the offseason a lot more seriously now. He's really starting to hone into getting into shape, and he's looking like the player that we saw in 2021 now. Obviously, he's hitting in home run derbies and hitting against lesser competition right now, but he looks like he's getting back to where he needs to be, and it's encouraging as a Blue Jay fan. He is the biggest wild card. The biggest addition they can make is getting him back to full strength, and you're bang on with that point.
Yeah, and hopefully he can do that. And according to this article, he's 24. I think he's approaching 25 for all you commenting that he's...
Yeah, he's going to be 25
yeah, very soon.
At the start of the season.
There you go. And overall, let us know what your thoughts are on that. And Peter, I'm hoping that a move is coming. I think one is going to come, but to be honest with you, I have no idea what Ross has up his sleeve right now. He can make a trade for Yelich. He could sign Bellinger. He could trade for Robert. And I wouldn't be surprised with any of them, given the expectations he put in the season. But that'll wrap up the video. If you want to check out our video from yesterday, click on your screen now, and we'll see you tomorrow.